Hello, and welcome to RuPaul's Drag Me to Hell. It's me, your host, RuPaul. I may look a little different, but it's me, RuPaul. It's absolutely me, RuPaul. No doubt about it. This is just a new character I'm working on where I'm a fat, dorky white guy. Pretty convincing. And only my head can move, not my hands. Or any other part of my body. Just my head moves because I'm RuPaul, and that's always how I've been. And today we're looking at the movie Drag Me to Hell. So let's go, honeys, darlings, babies. I've never watched RuPaul's Drag Race. I've heard good things. Never actually watched it, so I don't know what I'm supposed to say now. Cuckoo ka-choo. That's probably it. It's probably cuckoo ka-choo. And folks, I gotta tell you, this movie has everything. Persistent flies, anvils to the head, vomit, 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 old gypsy curses, and poor pet ownership. We start off back in the 1960s. A couple brings their child to this house. They bring her to a woman inside. They tell him that something's been following their son. He's ill. He's hearing voices. The woman's like, oh, okay, I know how to fix him. Bring him inside. She's a psychic of some sort. She's trying to do something. It doesn't work. This big evil spirit blows through, knocks the kid off a balcony. He falls down. Seems like to his death. They look down. Oh, the kid's okay. He's getting up. And then a portal to hell opens, and he is dragged down into it. Quite literally, he's dragged to hell. And the psychic's like, someday I will get my revenge on you. Fast forward to modern day, and we meet Chris. She works in a bank, and she's trying to get the assistant manager job. And we know this because this is a movie with very little subtext. We know this because she longingly looks at the assistant manager's desk, and there's a big placard that says assistant manager, and she makes like baddie eyes at it. She's competing for the assistant manager spot with one of her male co-workers, and he kind of talks down to her. Her boss kind of talks down to her. They're telling her to get them sandwiches for lunch, and you're like, okay, these guys are jerks. They're working against her. I don't think she's going to get that promotion. She goes off. She has lunch with her boyfriend, who's a professor. I don't remember the character's name. It's Justin Long. He's like the only actor in this I know. He's kind of a nerdy type. He has a coin collection. She gives him this rare coin that she found at her bank. As she's leaving, he gets a call from his mother, and on speakerphone with the door open, and her right outside the door, they have a loud conversation about how the mother doesn't like her because she's from a farm. And even though they've never met, she wants him to find a better class of woman. So she's got this promotion she's working for against these crappy boss and crappy coworker. She's got this issue with the boyfriend's parents, apparently. There's a lot going on in Chris's life. And the last thing she would need is a gypsy curse. Well, guess what happens? Well, this old lady comes in. She's got one messed up eye. She's hacking up all kinds of garbage into a what do you call those things? Handkerchief. Into a napkin. No, it was a handkerchief because later on in the movie, she becomes a haunted handkerchief. No, for real. She becomes a haunted handkerchief, I swear. And she is looking to get an extension on her home mortgage. Her home is going to be taken away from her. Chris is like, well, you've had 2 extensions already. I don't think my boss is going to do it. She approaches her boss to see if they can give this woman another extension.
The boss is like, you got to start making these hard decisions if you want to be assistant manager.
So she goes out and she's like, well, I'm sorry. We're not going to be able to extend your credit, ma'am. The old lady falls on her knees. She's like, I beg of you, please, I beg of you, please. She says no. The old lady starts attacking her, right? They call security. Security pulls the old lady out of there. So after work, Chris goes out to her car. The old lady's in her car. She attacks her, and I gotta give this credit. It's one of the more hilarious slapstick horror fights I've ever seen. They have quite a funny fight, including staplers to the eyes and rulers being jammed down throats. And some really crazy car action. She crashes her car. The old lady and her get out. The old lady grabs a button off her coat, says mystical words, and then throws the button back to her, then leaves, right? So after this, she decides, quite out of character apparently, she wants to get her fortune told. She goes and sees this fortune teller. He tells her, hey, there's a dark spirit on you. I think someone has cursed you. You know, you're in trouble, basically. Whenever she's alone, she's hearing voices. These forces are coming, knocking her around, knocking her out, hitting her. She's seeing like monsters and apparitions, hearing them. She's getting scratched up. She decides she's going to go to the old lady and try to beg her to get the curse off or help her with her house to get the curse off. And it turns out the old lady's dead and she's at her wake and she somehow falls into the body, which falls on her and then vomits up a bunch of liquid onto her. So she goes back to the psychic and he's like, well, there's something we can try. An animal sacrifice can maybe help get rid of this. And
she's like, one of the best lines of all of them, she's like, I'm a vegetarian. I'm a vegetarian. I can't kill an animal.
Back at her house, the spirit comes back. It crashes into her house, picks her up, whips her around, throws her against the wall. So all of a sudden, she's like, well, I was a vegetarian, but screw that. She gets a knife, and she has a kitten, and she's going through her house going, here, kitty, kitty. We cut to the kitten dead, and she's buried it. And as a cat owner myself, I did not like this part of the movie. It was funny. I didn't like that part where she killed her pet. It made me kind of sad. So she thinks that's taken care of it. Nothing's happening to her. There's no bad things happening. So she tells her boyfriend, hey, this big dinner at your parents' house where I'm going to meet them. Let's go. She goes, she meets the parents, the mom, and they're really rich and like stuck up there. Oh, nice to meet you. And the mom hates her. You can tell the mom doesn't like her and thinks she's just a farm girl. But they're talking to her and they're talking about her role at the bank and this huge deal she's put through and these mergers she's in charge of. And you can tell the mom's opinion of her is changing. She's warming up to her. So, of course, just as they're warming up and they're eating this cake that Chris brought, she made for everyone. They're eating this cake for dessert and they're all talking about how good it is. Chris pukes up the fly that flew into her mouth earlier in the movie. I don't think I mentioned that, but there's a fly that flew into her mouth earlier. And she starts seeing flies buzzing out of everyone's cake and blood happening. And she's seeing like the shadow of the monster stuff. She throws a glass at the wall. She's like, I gave you my cat. What more do you want? And everything. Totally flips out. She runs away. And her boyfriend's going to follow her. And the mom's like, she's a sick girl. Leave her. Leave her. We're rich and evil. We don't help the sick. Don't you know that? So she goes back to the psychic guy. And he's like, well, I know a woman who can maybe help. But she doesn't work for free. It's going to cost $10,000. So Chris takes all of her stuff. She's pawning her stuff, trying to get the money together. She can't get the money together. Her boyfriend comes to see her, and he's like, listen, I paid the $10,000 for the psychic. We're going to go to this woman. We're going to get this taken care of. So the psychic takes her to this woman's house, and the woman is the psychic that we saw at the beginning of the movie. The one who in the 1960s tried to save that little boy and couldn't. He was dragged to hell. So it's the lady psychic, the man psychic, Chris, and then another dude who's there. So their plan is to lure this demon in and put it into a live goat, and then they're going to kill the goat to kill the demon, okay? So they lure the demon into the woman psychic, then she puts it into the goat. They try to kill the goat. It doesn't work. The goat bites the dude's hand, the red shirt guy. Then the demon goes into him. He's floating around and has fangs and everything. They're fighting. People are getting knocked around. The female psychic is able to like pull the spirit out of him and dissipate it. But then she dies. It's too much for her. She has a heart attack. So afterward, they're loading her in an ambulance. And the male psychic is like talking to Chris. And she's like,
oh, I'm so glad it's all over. This is wonderful.
He's like, it's not over. We didn't kill the spirit. She was able to banish it for now, but it's coming back. And he's like, in the morning, it's going to come and it's going to drag you to hell. Oh, and I should have mentioned this. That button that the woman cursed her and threw back at her, that is what the demon is focused on because it belongs to Chris. So the psychic tells her, if you give this button as a gift to someone else, the curse moves on to them and they'll be taken instead. And she's like,
Why didn't you tell me this in the first place?
Which was my thought too. And he's like, well, because then you're condemning someone to hell, and I would be your accomplice, and I didn't want that on my soul if there was any other way to do this. So he gives her the button in an envelope. He tells her, you know, tonight by morning you have to do this. Make your decision. Her boyfriend's driving her home. They almost run a guy over. Her purse spills. She can't find the button. She's looking. She's all freaking out. She finds it, right? Takes it back. Boyfriend drops her off. She goes to a diner, and she's going to give it to some random old sick guy. He's sitting there with the oxygen, and she's approaching him. His wife comes up with a piece of cake for him. He's like, oh, sweetie, you're the sweetest thing that ever sweetened in the whole sweet world. And she can't do it. Oh, and there's a subplot about her coworker who's up for that manager job, screwed her out of some big deal at her work and cost her the assistant manager position. So she calls him up and tells him to meet her. She wants him to meet her at this diner. He comes. She's going to gift it to him. He starts crying and blubbering about how he's sorry for screwing her over, and please don't tell on him. She can't do it. She can't bring herself to send him to hell either. So then she's like, wait a minute. Is there a way for me to give this to the person who deserves it? The old lady who put the curse on me. Well, she's dead. She goes to the psychic, and of course the psychic's reading some book, and he's like,
yes, I believe it is possible.
Because of course it is. So she goes to the graveyard, and all this is happening before day comes. This one small woman is able to fully dig up her coffin, rip it open, and she jams the envelope in her mouth and slams it shut, and she's like,
take that, you old bitch.
And we cut to her. She's at home. She's taking a shower. She's putting on nice clothes. She's refreshed. She's meeting her boyfriend. They're going off for a weekend together. And we cut to the boyfriend. He's meeting her at the train station. He's got a wedding ring. He's going to propose. She stops at this store as she's going into the train station. They have this beautiful coat on sale. She buys it. She goes to meet the boyfriend, and he's like, oh, where's your old coat? She's like, oh, I just bought this new one. I threw it away. You know, she's all happy. Things are going great. He's like, oh, that's too bad because I found this in my car. He holds up the envelope. He's got the envelope with the button in it. He's like, I think you accidentally took the envelope that had my coin in it. You remember the coin she gave him because he's a coin collector? It was a coin that she stuffed in the old lady's mouth, not the button. That is literally what this movie is about. She's like, oh, oh. She starts backing up, and he's like, hey. She falls off the train platform. A train's coming to hit her, right? He's like, no, he's reaching down to grab her. And all of a sudden, a portal opens to hell, and she's dragged down to hell. End of the movie. As you know, we give every movie that we look at here 2 ratings. One for quality, one for horror. Quality, is it a good movie? Horror, did it make me piss my pants? Quality, I gotta say, I did not enjoy this movie. It had some solid comedy in it, and it's written and directed by Sam Raimi, who's sort of known for the horror comedy thing. It's funny, but it never really had much suspense. I didn't really like the ending. I didn't really like many of the characters. I found the main character kind of bland and uninteresting, and the story was just sort of there. It never really hooked me. So for quality, it's a 1. As for horror, I'm going to give it a 2. There was some decent jump scares along the way, and there was some good gross out kind of horror stuff with the vomit and bugs and things like that. It never got to a point where I was really scared. It never got really scary. The horror elements were often there just to kind of push along the comedy, which I'm discovering is not something I like. I think I like my horror to either be pretty serious and scary, or so goofy and so slapstick that it's just straight comedy. I don't know that I like the mixture of trying to mix pure horror and pure comedy together, which is what this felt like. Overall, it's a 3, pretty weak rating. Thank you for joining me today. I hope that you'll like, share, subscribe, anything you can do to help my channel gain traction. I want more people watching me because I'm gorgeous. Thank you for joining me here at RuPaul's Drag Me to Hell. And remember, no matter if you're strutting your stuff on the catwalk or being drugged to hell, is it drugged to hell or dragged to hell? I don't know. I should know. I don't know. Either way, you are damn sexy.